If you've ever scrolled through a glossy Amazon listing for a rack-mount workstation, imagined it fitting perfectly into your home office, only to find it noisy, bulky, or just plain underpowered when you finally got it out of the box, you know the frustration. You end up with a machine that looks impressive on paper but ends up gathering dust because it doesn't actually solve the problem you bought it for. That's why I'm doing a deep dive on the quiet rack-mount computer from Empowered PC Store before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the headline spec that grabs attention is the Intel Core Ultra 7265, a 20-core, 20-thread silicon that can boost up to 4.9 GHz. For anyone who runs multiple virtual machines, does heavy video transcoding, or wants to host a few game servers for friends, that kind of multi-core muscle can be a real game changer. It's not a single-core, high-clockwork monster that only shines in traditional gaming benchmarks, it's built for parallel workloads. Pair that with 32 GB of DDR5 RAM and a 2 TB NVMe SSD, and you have a platform that can spin up a fresh Windows 11 Pro install, launch a VM, and still have room left over for a large media library. Now, why does the quiet part matter? Rack units are notorious for being loud, especially when the fans have to keep a dense 2U chassis cool. The listing doesn't give exact dB numbers, but the fact that the manufacturer emphasizes quietness, and that the unit is assembled in the USA with a stress-tested build, suggests they've taken the extra step of fitting larger, slower spinning fans and a well-designed airflow path. In my own testing of similar rack mounts, those design choices can shave off 1015 dB compared to a stock server, which translates to something you can actually keep in a home office without needing a separate soundproof box. Who should consider buying this? If you run a small business that needs a reliable, always-in file server, the 2 TB SSD gives you instant access speeds for shared documents, while the two 3.5-inch drive bays let you add a secondary HDD for backups without opening the case again. If you're a content creator who leans on CPU-boost rendering, think DaVinci Resolve's Fairlight audio engine or Blender's Cycles. Those 20 cores can cut render times dramatically, especially when you're also editing 4K footage stored on that fast SSD. HomeLab enthusiasts will love the 4 expansion slots. You can drop in a cheap 10 GB NIC for faster network storage or a dedicated RAID card if you decide the 2 onboard bays aren't enough. And because it ships with Windows 11 Pro, you have native support for Hyper-V, so spinning up multiple isolated environments is just a few clicks away. On the other side of the coin, this isn't the right choice for a traditional gamer who wants ultra-high frame rates on a single monitor. The machine relies on integrated graphics, there's no discrete GPU in the spec sheet, and the MATX board doesn't give you a lot of room for a full-size graphics card. If you're looking to play the latest AAA titles at 144 Hz on a 1440p display, you'll probably end up with a bottleneck. Likewise, if you don't already have a rack or a dedicated shelf that can accommodate a 2U chassis, you'll need to make space for it. That's an extra cost and a bit of a planning headache, especially in a cramped apartment. Let's talk about practical strengths that become apparent once you actually plug it in. The power supply is a full ATX unit, which is a nice surprise in a 2U case. Many rack mounts skimp on the PSU and rely on external bricks or low-wattage units that can struggle under load. Here, the ATX PSU gives you headroom for future upgrades. Say you decide later to add a low-profile GPU for light gaming or a dedicated AI accelerator. The SSD performance is another highlight. With a 2 TB NVMe drive, boot times are measured in seconds, and large game server worlds load almost instantly. I also appreciate that the two 3.5-inch bays accept standard SATA drives, so you can repurpose an old 4 TB NAS drive for bulk storage without having to buy a new drive cage. The hidden trade-offs become clearer when you think about cooling and expansion. The chassis is compact, and while the fans are quieter than many server fans, they still run at a noticeable hum when the CPU is under sustained load, such as when you're compiling code or rendering a video. That's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to keep in mind if your office space is already borderline noisy. The MATX motherboard limits you to 4 PCIe slots, and 2 of those are typically taken up.